Hello, and on today's episode, I'm here with Jia from Wyre. How are you today?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks, Jason.
So could you tell me a little bit about the problems that Wyre is trying to solve here?
Yeah, absolutely. So just taking a step back, so Wyre was founded in 2013 as one of the original infrastructure crypto companies. So, back then what we did was, payment processing, to help different merchants to accept Bitcoin or Litecoin as a form of payments, and then processing that back into fiat, right? And we also started e-wallets whereby end users can basically, fund with fiat to buy crypto. And I think the ecosystem has changed so much that nowadays in 2018, there's so many different decentralized protocols that have non-custodial models whereby the end user is really holding the private keys to their own funds. And there's so much more benefit to that, but it's really hard to interact with the fiat world in a compliant manner when you simply have your own private keys in a non-custodial wallet. So the problem that we're trying to solve at Wyre is to basically enable those type of new decentralized financial protocols or non-custodial wallets to still be able to interact with the fiat world in a compliant manner.
So really trying to reduce some of the friction that's out there right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you try to go from, your bank account to CryptoKitties, there's, 100 steps you got to take. And you have to go to this exchange to purchase the ETH, and then you ship it over to this dApp browser to buy these token assets. And it's just in terms of user experience, especially in 2018, where everybody is used to clickbait and just being able to go from a few steps to what you need to do. We're really trying to just bridge that gap of the user experience so that users can onboard very quickly and be able to purchase that CryptoKitty.
Yeah, there are so many sad stories of CryptoKitties customers where they really wanted to, check it out and buy one, but it's just too much work. They just gave up.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, I think there was a lot of different enthusiasts that came into the ecosystem in this past 5 years. And now that crypto has gone mainstream, we're really trying to bring in that next 100 million users. And a lot of that does have to do with, user experience and just the simplicity of the whole thing. And it's just, trying to lay a lot more foundation in terms of the interaction between the fiat world and the crypto economy, basically.
So could you tell me a little bit more about how you're actually solving this problem? What does it look like from the consumer's end?
Yeah, for sure. So, let's use some examples to kind of draw out how that looks like. So in the traditional financial world, lending, you have savings, you have different money markets, you have trading and exchanges, your Robinhood or your Fidelity account. So I think with all the Finance 3.0 players that are coming out on top of the Ethereum blockchain, such as Dharma or Maker with stablecoins, all of these protocols are essentially still financial services. Now, everything has migrated over in terms of non-custodial wallets and the decentralized protocol that enables these services. But I think one thing that didn't really migrate over is compliance, because at the end of the day, you're still dealing with finance, right? So regulation around finance is very important to kind of bring in the next 100 million users, because if you don't have a compliant protocol, then how can institutional money be poured into this new ecosystem? And if you don't have something that is checking the regulatory box, you can't. Even if the technology is great, you still don't have all the kind of regulated market makers or all the active participants in the traditional financial world that's participating and using this great technology. So what we've done on our side is we've created what's called an ERC-721 token, and we've basically used this token standard to basically represent the compliance status of an end user on chain. So off chain, let's say basically the end user still passes their KYC information to us and their AML information, which is know your customer and anti-money laundering, right? So in terms of money transmission or any kind of regulated financial services, you have to know who the customer is and that their source of fund is legal and not coming from Osama bin Laden, right? So in that sense, what we've done with this ERC-721 compliance token is we have enabled end users to get verified by a regulated service provider in Wire, and we simply issue a ERC-721 token to their non-custodial wallets to represent their compliance status on-chain. And so now what we've done is we bridged the gap of compliance so that all of these decentralized protocols has an element of compliance in it, whereby we know, or anyone that checks this contract can know that end user that hosts this token has been verified by a regulated service provider, so that they can participate in this decentralized protocol in a compliant manner.
Yeah, compliance is so important. I've heard so many sad stories of developers and founders who really thought they could, have compliance be maybe optional or as an afterthought, and it really ended up destroying their project.
Yeah, for sure. And this is something that, a lot of different developers don't understand or even care to think about. And honestly, I don't think they should, right? They've come into the space, they're excited about what blockchain can do, and they build a lot of cool products and cool protocols that really are, how things would work in terms of the internet value in the future when everything is kind of decentralized, distributed, or, you have non-custodial wallets whereby the end users hold the private keys. So, if you're a blockchain developer, you don't want to think about if this is legal or do I have to, get my own compliance officer? Do I have to have my own KYC and ML program? If it's just 5 to 10 developers that have come up with a cool idea, you don't want that to be the hurdle or the barrier to entry that stops you or diverts your resources and attention away from the core protocol that you're building. So what we've done at Wyre is basically, kind of put compliance in a box along with the money transmission in terms of on-ramps and off-ramps, so that the protocols can simply take this very simple SDK or API, plug it in, and don't have to think about compliance anymore, because Wyre will be the ones who underwrites these accounts and that has the AML and the KYC involved to basically verify all those users, right? And then simply using this token contract to know which users have been verified as to why they're allowed to participate in this financial protocol.
So if I was a developer, can I start using the system right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just launched a few weeks ago with our SDK widgets, and it's just a JavaScript, a couple of snippets of code. And what it does is it drops this button onto your website so that your end users can go through KYC AML onboarding in under 1 minute and submit all their information, right? Whether it's their address and name and birthday and such, and also the AML aspect as far as transaction monitoring. And then once the end user is verified, we'll issue that compliance token into their non-custodial wallet. And once again, in this SDK widget, from a developer standpoint, it's literally just 10 lines of code, right? It's just wire.js, if you will. And it's already pretty much ready to use, and we're just kind of adding more and more features to it. So in the first version, end users can go through the widget to get onboarded, and then also be able to top up in terms of a fiat on-ramp, right? Meaning that they'll get verified as an end user, and then they're basically able to connect their bank accounts and go from their bank account to their MetaMask, right? So that's the sort of the first version of the widgets, and then later versions will have kind of just better payment features in terms of ACH or debit cards, right? And then we're building out different fraud prevention tools to bring down the processing time, from 3 days to 1 day to basically same day or real time payment processing, right? So, obviously there's already a lot of different payment processors out there, such as PayPal or Stripe, but being sort of the crypto payment processor in this space, it's a very different ballgame, right? You have to have built-in liquidity to convert the USD or the euro into the BTC or the ETH, and that aspect, is once again, you as a developer don't want to have to spend time doing all that along with the KYC and the AML and the compliance program, and then having to build out liquidity as well. That's not something that developers should have to do, and they can just literally plug in this wire.js widgets and it'll take care of all that for them.
So if I'm a developer, how do I sign up for this?
Yeah. So basically, right now, it'd be best to kind of just do reach out to us I guess you can even just reach out to me directly. I'm at jack@sendwire.com. But at sendwire.com, we have become a partner landing page that you can kind of reach out to us on. We're also on Discord and on Telegram. And if you go to blog.sendwire.com, there's a lot of really good educational material that we put up there in terms of what AML KYC is. How do you land those bigger partnerships with different bigger companies by having your own program and what that entails. And just a lot of good information on our widget as well in terms of, our product roadmap. And we have something called a Ship It update, right? And it's a product, basically it's like a product update that that contains a lot of information on what the current release is and what our future roadmap is, basically. And we kind of pride ourselves on actually meeting our roadmap in terms of, hey, we said we're going to deliver this in 2 weeks, and we did. So, in terms of, I guess, the ICO space with different roadmaps and promises that are made.
Yeah, a lot of grand promises have been made over the years. It's very hard, especially just in software in general, to actually meet your goals. And in crypto, it seems to be even harder.
Yeah. And I think with the whole craze with 2017 in terms of the ICO and I guess the fiat protocol, and what can be done on the blockchain, a lot of that is very exciting. But when it comes to actually implementing or executing on it, you run into these issues with compliance, with banks, and how do you actually get banking partnerships, and building out the liquidity, because at the end of the day, all of these tokens. It is money, right? It's a form of native currency built on top of the protocol, and it's great if you're only going from token to token because you're just on the blockchain. But how do we actually bridge the gap to bring the world onto the blockchain? And so there is a macro processing time, if you will, that takes us from here to there, and that's the whole point in this next 10 to 20 years is. This migration period, this transitionary period, whereby we are kind of blockchainifying the world from every angle, and the way, and this is obviously the bigger argument between the Bitcoin maximalists versus all the different token economies or token ecosystems out there, but that's a much bigger argument.
So, what have been some of the biggest challenges of developing this system?
Yeah, there's so many different challenges, and I really don't think it's a technical challenge, to be honest. It really comes down to the real world. How do you actually implement these protocols in the real world, right? In terms of actual usage of the blockchain, even for the Bitcoin blockchain, which has the most hash power and the most immutable ledger, it's really hard to kind of migrate the world over to it when you already have this kind of sticky effect. Regulatory bodies from different jurisdictions, from different governments that either support it or don't. And even if they do support it, how long does it take before it becomes commonly accepted to just use a smart contract as a regular contract? Does it hold up in a court of law, right? And then in terms of money transmission, how do you actually do any kind of surveillance or anti-money laundering to fight against terrorism and stuff like that? So it's the technology is really great, and I love all the different governments out there that are supporting it, the growth of blockchain. But at the same time, even for the governments that are supporting it, it still creates certain barriers, even just by rolling out with regulation. And at the same time, different entrepreneurs and different crypto companies, we have to, play by the law of the land, right? We can't just say, okay, cool, screw the law and we'll do whatever we want. That's how you get in trouble. Like that recent company, what's it called? One Block, that SEC just recently prosecuted, right? So you do have to follow the law because that's just the law of the land that you have to play ball. So I think there's definitely this kind of transitionary period before everything becomes blockchainified that you have to kind of compromise with the world as is.
Has it been hard to get developers to realize that they need you?
I would say yes and no, because it's definitely an educational process, right? When you have a lot of unknowns in terms of developers that didn't come from a compliance background and that doesn't understand what FinCEN or SEC and what it means to become a money services business or to hold money transmission licenses from state to state, and that's just in the U.S. And then having to go to different jurisdictions to for developers, they're specializing in development. They understand how to build different protocols. So I think there is an educational process that kind of requires us to help people understand what is KYC, what is AML off chain, how might that work on chain. But I think once people kind of, I guess, hear me talk, they or not me, but in terms of our company that is trying to convey these ideas, once they get it, they really get it. They're like, oh, you mean that I can just drop this widget in there and you'll perform all the KYC and AML and you're the ones that's liable because you're the regulated entity that is performing all these KYC and AML checks. And, I don't have to worry about any of that, and you're giving me the fiat on-ramps and off-ramps along in the same SDK widget, right? So basically, once people understand it, I think they really do understand it because, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what type of decentralized financial protocol it is. It only matters that there's some sort of flow of fund, right? In terms of, from borrower to lender, from independent contractor to different companies that are hiring those independent contractors, from, just whatever you can do in terms of different financial protocols in a decentralized manner is still involves some sort of flow of fund. And that's exactly what we do in terms of helping both types of end users. For example, if you're an investor that is investing in different security tokens issued by the issuer, right? The money really goes from end to end, from the investor, from their bank account to the bank account of the issuer. Even though it travels through the blockchain, at the end of the day, for example, if I'm issuing a REIT, asset-backed real estate token or something like that, I still need to, even if I am kind of issuing the security token on the blockchain, ultimately I still need the funds to come back into fiat money, into USD or Euro, so that I can actually purchase the ETH or purchase the REITs, right, the real estate. So one way or another, like I'm saying, in this next 10, 20 years, I think we're still going to be touching the fiat world in many ways. So, once the developer understands that we can help with that on-ramp and off-ramp, from the fiat world onto the blockchain and then back to the fiat world, then they get it. So it's definitely just an educational process.
You talked a little bit about the roadmap. Do you have any other plans going forward for the future?
Yeah, for sure. So, I think for the rest of the year, we're already in Q4 2018 now. It's first day of Q4. For the rest of the year, our plan is threefold. We want to improve the onboarding for end users so that it's just faster, right? So real-time check in terms of end users submitting their KYC and it gets checked in real time, and there's no onboarding exceptions that they have to come back to finish their onboarding process. So onboarding is the first priority, and then second priority is to improve the different payment features available through our SDK or API. So that we're adding debit cards processing, we're adding ACH, and the ACH right now is a 3-day processing, right? Adding different fraud prevention tools to lower that down to 1 day or same day even. And then, and our third priority for the year is to kind of open up our API in a way that it still fits decentralized protocols, even though we are a centralized entity, right? So we have to be a centralized entity in terms of the payment infrastructure that we run with all the different liquidity channels and all the different banking relationships to process the payments between banks and non-custodial wallets. So while we are a trusted third party, we're trying to re-architecturalize our API to fit the decentralized protocols such that we're using the private key of the end user's non-custodial wallet to sign up for and to sign into a Wyre account. So that basically, even though it's still this kind of this centralized entity that is Wyre, we're offering our API in a way that can still fit decentralized protocols. So that's at a very high level. That's what we're trying to do before the end of the year, is to improve the onboarding with the KYC and AML, to add better payment features and add fraud prevention to kind of just make payments a lot faster, crypto payments a lot faster. And then the third one is to kind of re-architecturalize our API for decentralized protocols to use.
Well, it sounds like a much needed service. I was wondering, is there anything I should have asked you that maybe I missed?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look out for any future hackathons that we may sponsor because, for example, we just had a hackathon at ETH San Francisco about a week ago, and there's different things that you can do with our API in conjunction with a lot of the other decentralized protocols out there, such as Dharma, such as Compound, such as Maker with a stablecoin DAI. All of those different decentralized protocols are really awesome, and there's no conflict of interest in kind of building something with Wire to offer the on-ramp and off-ramp to those protocols. So definitely look out for any future hackathons that we're going to sponsor. But definitely feel free to stop by synwire.com/docs, DOCS, and just check out our API, right? And then you can reach out to me either on Telegram at demonopolize. That's monopoly, monopolize, demonopolize. That's my Telegram handle. And yeah, just feel free to chat about anything crypto.
All right, I'll make sure I have all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason, for having me.
You are a podcast listener and you're interested in crypto. Otherwise, why would you be listening to this show, right? Have you tried looking for new crypto and blockchain podcasts to listen to? If you've used Google, then you've probably found a whole bunch of clickbait articles. Top 10 lists that just list the same podcasts over and over again. And most of those podcasts aren't even active anymore. If you use iTunes, then you probably got a whole bunch of irrelevant results. The iTunes search function is absolutely awful. It's kind of like using Alta Vista in the 1990s. Keyword stuffing has made it almost unusable. So I made a site to fix this problem. Just go to crypto.podcastlist.net. On the site, you'll find a comprehensive list of all the active podcasts covering the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and other decentralization technologies. This is not a curated list of my favorite shows. This list is intended to be complete. I want to list every single show that is focused on this industry. I've got about 75 active shows on the list already. Please let me know if I've missed any shows. This list is also covered by a Creative Commons license, so feel free to reuse it and share it. Check out crypto.podcastlist.net if you are looking for new crypto and blockchain podcasts. And if you have your own show, please check and make sure you are listed. Once again, the site is crypto.podcastlist.net. Please check it out and tell me what you think.